And recall, like at the beginning, I said this is a story. It's ultimately a story of overcoming. So although when I have to go back and revisit these moments, I feel the emotions of them. It's not where I am now, right? It's not where I am now. I'm in a very good place. Just want to make that clear. Um, so we'll move on to part three, which is current. Those that are me, and this poem. This next one is going to be a lot more lighthearted, but it comes from a serious issue which is happening, in our culture today, which is of the changing laws that we're seeing. So in the past couple years, we've seen anti-LGBT laws and especially anti-trans and gender nonconforming laws that have been rushed through state legislation and signed by governors becoming law. So in 2023, over 520 anti-LGBT bills were introduced in state legislatures, which is a record number. Over 220 of those bills specifically target transgender and non-binary people, also a record number, and a record 70 anti-LGBT laws were enacted in 2023. Just earlier this week, South Carolina became the 25th state to pass some form of ban on gender-affirming medical care for minors. And while the public relations on these laws often communicate that they are intended to protect children from irreversible procedures, they are often drafted more broadly, such that doctors who previously provided care that the medical profession does not consider irreversible are often halted for fear of violating the law. And the South Carolina law, for example, bars physicians from providing gender-affirming medical care to minors, including hormone treatments, puberty blockers, and surgeries, all forms of treatment that major medical associations understand are sometimes appropriate to treat gender dysphoria. South Carolina medical professionals who provide any of the banned treatments are now open to face civil lawsuits and subject to disciplinary action by their licensing boards, as well as facing the potential of criminal penalties and imprisonment in some instances. The South Carolina law also requires schools to notify parents and guardians if a student has told anyone in the school that they are transgender or if they ask for different pronouns to be used. This is mind-boggling to me. I cannot imagine the turmoil that that could cause in someone's home. I am not a transgender or I don't consider myself gender nonconforming, but if I try to put myself in those shoes and put myself back into my experience and my family as a child, what that would have done to me in my home would have been devastating. So I think, personal opinion, that's awful. And while there may be very well be civil important discussions that we should have in our society regarding irreversible surgeries for minors, I don't think we always need to start here and here. There may be some conversations to be had for that, as to, when a minor should or should not be able to have a surgery, or, we need to have these open discussions. But the problem with these laws being passed is that they don't take into account the advice or opinions of actual medical professionals who study and treat these issues, and they supplant these medical decisions with the will of politicians. So in Ohio, we have a very weird situation going on here. I'm not even sure I fully understand it. But in 2023, our Congress passed a law banning gender affirming care for trans youth, including hormone therapy and puberty blockers, and prohibiting transgender athletes from playing women's sports. This is where it gets weird because I don't really understand where the governor stands, which we'll get into a little bit here. The governor vetoed the bills, stating, ultimately, I believe this is about protecting human life. Many parents have told me that their child would be dead today if they had not received the treatment they received from an Ohio children's hospital. I have also been told by those that are now grown adults that but for this care, they would have taken their lives when they were teenagers. So the governor realized that, this was basically politicians supplanting the advice of medical professionals and vetoed the bill. But then I don't know why he goes and he signs some executive orders that really aren't much different from the bills. And they're so loosely worded that they could even have been interpreted to block medical care, not just for minors, but for trans adults. And so I'm really confused about why the governor vetoed and then made these executive orders. Um, but then obviously after he vetoed it, the support was enough, unfortunately, in the Congress to come back and override the governor's veto. And so the law was set to go into effect at I think, the mid or end of April. But there have been some lawsuits right now, and the law is currently been halted by the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, who has issued a temporary restraining order prohibiting this law from taking effect. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens from here. So then we've also had some anti-drag queen and anti-gender nonconforming laws. The increasing visibility of drag performers, things like RuPaul's Drag Race and our culture has made performances a target to conservative politicians and legislators. And in the last year, 21 drag-related bills have been considered in 12 states. But thankfully, a lot of these bills are failing because they're found to violate the First Amendment. Um, my legal opinion on that is duh. Of course they do. I mean, this is somebody's freedom of expression. And courts have ruled that the anti-drag laws in Montana, Florida, Tennessee, and Texas are all unenforceable because they violate the First Amendment. And so why are state legislators and politicians even considering such bills? Well, they think it's good politics and a good motivator to certain segments of their voters. And I believe we have politicians intentionally and actively throwing vulnerable minorities under the bus for political gain, and I think it's cynical and pretty disgusting. And that's my opinion on that. And with that, we're going to come to reading three, which is a little bit more lighthearted. When I wrote this, I imagined this poem being recited by a sarcastic and entertaining drag queen. Okay. And it's called Effeminate Domain. Take ye, governor, for this is my body. This do in remembrance of my platforms and lashes. Take ye my joy, my wigs, my nails, for I have no womb for your brandy glasses to command. Take ye, lieutenant, for this is my ass. Break it your bread, my saintly daddy. Take ye my youth, my locks, my lips, for I have no womb for your cigar caddy to encase. Take ye, gentlemen, and use our bodies to transubstantiate.